What
Yes.
is on your mind, my friend?
Okay, so I am a men's rights advocate. I used to be more of a MRA. I mean, I used to be more of a MGTOW, but I kind of stepped away from them due to their blatant racism and hostility towards activism. Now, I remember a couple of years ago, I watched a video of yours reacting to Jubilee's panel between men's rights activists and feminists. I don't know if you disavow that video or not.
I don't think I do. I don't think I said anything there that I disagree with.
Okay. I will admit I don't exactly remember what my video response, what I posted my video response was, but you do know that when Jubilee made that video, the actual discussion was like 2 hours long, and Jubilee cut out parts of the video, of the discussion, where there were feminists, like the one feminist, Alicia, who said that she wished men didn't exist. And this was something that Jubilee cut out of the discussion, along with some points that the men's rights activists made, specifically the one guy, Cursat, who's the guy wearing the blue shirt.
Well, I can't confirm or deny that took place. If that did take place and they edited things in a deceptive way, then that's obviously bad. How would you know this? Do you have access to the full recording?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, Jubilee seems like they only care about views, so it seems like something they might do. It's bad to say that all men should go away, if that is a thing that was said.
I swear, hang on a second. When I made my video response to what you posted, I pretty thoroughly researched it. I hope Jubilee didn't take it down. Okay, it's still up here. I could send you a link if you want. Do you want a link?
Sure, yeah. I can't watch it right now, though. I mean, it's probably a long video. You said it was 2 hours. I can't, check through it to verify the...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just trying to, prove that I'm not lying to you. It's got timestamps in the description, so if you look through the description, it has...
Wait, were you one of the people here?
I'm sorry?
Were you one of the people at the Jubilee event?
No. Now, I didn't really get into politics until relatively recently. I created my YouTube channel in 2018, and before that, I wasn't really that firmly rooted in left or right ideology.
Well, okay, so I can't watch the entirety of the video. It sounds like this is somebody recorded the whole thing with their phone in their pocket, which is a smart thing to do when you go to events like these that are not broadcasted live. But yeah, of what relevance is this? What have I said that you take issue with?
Okay, well, I do remember... I apologize if I didn't prepare that well for this, because your schedule is kind of spotty, and I had to find a time when... It was kind of completely at random, but I do remember... Oh yeah, now I remember. You made a point where Cursat basically asked what the feminists did for men, and I think you said something along the lines that the men's rights advocates never did anything for men, and I knew of at least one example of them doing something. Back, I don't remember if this was 1 or 2 years ago, it was during the Trump administration, the National Coalition for Men, Mark Angelucci of the National Coalition for Men sued the Selective Service that a male-only draft is blatant sex discrimination.
Well, that's good. I'm sorry. When I say that men's rights activists haven't done anything, I don't mean that there's literally no instance of any person who is a men's rights activist ever having done anything at any point. What I mean is that generally speaking, it seems like a lot of the ways in which men suffer, it's a product of problems that feminism tries to address. So I'm not I'll be more specific with my language in the future. I don't literally mean nothing. I just don't think there should be any antagonism between men's rights groups and feminist groups. They should be one and the same. Intersectional feminism is all about alleviating these biases, whether they affect men or women or whoever.
I'm just watching people make fun of my stage fright in the chat.
Well, listen, never, ever, ever look at chat, okay? They're vicious people, and they're hateful, and they just want to take you down.
It wouldn't be my first rodeo. But anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. When I talk about men's rights activism and feminism, when I criticize female supremacism, I don't, impugn feminists in general. And if I do, I usually am pretty specific to either things like TERFs or some radical feminists. But usually the people that I criticize are female supremacists, and they aren't necessarily going to be, they're not going to necessarily call themselves feminists. Some of them call themselves conservatives.
Mm-hmm. Well, female supremacy would be a conservative position by definition. Being a female supremacist is anti-feminist.
Wait, so it's conservative?
Yeah, of course. If you believe that a sex or a gender is objectively superior to another, yeah, that's a conservative position. It's hierarchical and essentialist by default. It's certainly not intersectional.
Well, that's kind of interesting because a lot of, I've from 2016 to 2018-ish, I hung around conservative circles a lot before they kind of pushed me out. And one thing that I do remember is it was kind of a mixed bag as far as what their position of female supremacy was. Like Steven Crowder, from 2016 to 2018, I used to watch Steven Crowder a lot. The video that he posted that made me really mad, that made me stop watching him, was his video on what a real man should be. So I have some pride in not being a viewer of his when he posted that super racist video a little while ago. But there was, the people like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, and maybe Gavin McInnes on and off, was more female supremacist or gynocentric, whatever the term we might use.
Gavin McInnes is female supremacist?
I mean, I'm trying to remember exactly. I know I'm kind of...
Isn't he explicitly a chauvinist? I mean, he self-describes as a chauvinist. The Proud Boys are a male-only organization. How is he a female supremacist?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to remember what I was thinking 2 years ago. Gavin McInnes, I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what I didn't write my notes down before this.
No worries, I hate taking notes.
Steven, I mean, maybe he's not female supremacist, but
I don't know how any of them are. I don't know of any mainstream female supremacists. I mean, there are some lunatics on Twitter, I guess. The majority of people who have biases like these are pretty explicitly chauvinist. They believe that men are better than women. That's a pretty common right-wing talking point, though they dress it up. It's they don't say men are better. They say men are different than women, and women's place are in the home, and men's place is to contribute to society, build all of civilization, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty much, yeah, men are better than women. But I can imagine if we flip the table, a matriarchal society where they would have the same positions, just reversed, where they would believe that women are better than men, that men are just lapdogs, et cetera, and that would also be a conservative society, you know?
Well, I gotta say, one thing that I've noticed, I'm not sure if I could even call them feminists, but one thing I've noticed some people say is, that women who are anti-abortion they're just anti-abortion just to please men. And I know that is BS because I've seen some of these anti-abortion women. They have absolutely no respect for any men that are anti-abortion. There was a woman on Twitter. I think Twitter banned her for certain things that she had posted. But I do remember, like, before she got banned, she had a tweet where she said that if you are a man, you're against abortion, you should kill yourself. I mean, and I could give you other examples of women who are anti-abortion who might have their like they tend to. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't think that's being a female supremacist. That's just really, really, really disliking anti-choice men. I can't really blame women for hating those people, considering the fact that they represent a very real threat to their, well-being.
But the thing that I've noticed is people would call the women who are anti-abortion anti-woman. I mean, they're anti-choice for other women, but like there are examples I could probably bring up in links of women who, like Phyllis Schlafly is a very high-profile example of this, of a woman who wanted to have kids, doesn't care that other women don't want to have kids, and think that other people should be forced to live their lives the way they want to. And I'm not saying that's necessarily female supremacist, but when I see people say that is like necessarily anti-woman or male supremacist, it's not necessarily because what about men who don't want to have kids? I mean, I remember reading an article on Mother Jones. Like I'm sorry if I kind of sound like I'm all over the place, but I do know that like spermjacking is a real thing and it's a real problem, and it's not necessarily. I
don't think it's a thing that happens very often.
But it's a problem.
Sure, but it's a problem in the same way that, like, random ne'er-do-wells running into the subway to push people in front of train tracks are a problem. It's a thing that happens, and it's bad when it does happen, but I don't feel like we need to make a public panic out of it.
I mean, the thing is that one thing that I've noticed when I would look up online is, like, if I look up reproductive coercion online, the only results that I'm going to find are when men do it to women. But if you want to find cases of women doing it to men, reproductive coercion, like you have to specifically type in spermjacking, because if you don't, then what's going to happen is it's going to be Google bombed.
Well, maybe that's because reproductive coercion is the medical term, and it gets used largely by people with a relationship to medical and info or social services, whereas the term spermjacking is exclusively used by bitter MRAs, so they would signal boost all instances of it taking place alongside that term. Like, I'm sure that if we talk about reproductive coercion in an academic setting, we'll be referring to it in a fairly gender-neutral way, but if all MRAs use is the esoteric internet lingo spermjacking, that's probably going to interfere a little bit with the neutrality of Google results, right?
Well, I mean, if you look up spermjacking, you'll probably get the MRA results. But if you look up reproductive coercion, or at least when I did a couple years ago when I was like looking all this stuff up, is like I only found results on men doing it to women, and I like looked at like multiple pages on Google, and if Google's biased, maybe I should have used Bing or Yahoo or something. I don't know if there is a unbiased search engine, but I'm trying to do my due diligence and doing my research. I'm trying to avoid being one of those people who just have a position that's not based in fact. And I know I
understand that. So I'm just curious, mm-hmm. because I need to get to this point. Is there a position that you were interested in debating or challenging on my end? Because I can't really speak to like Google search result biases. That's not something that I have enough of a stake in to really argue for or against.
There is two actually issues that I wanted to talk to you about. The first one was the Jubilee video, which you seem to kind of agree with me on, so I could go on to the next one. The other issue...
Well, if a video is deceptively edited, then I think that's bad, but I haven't seen the contents of the deceptive editing. It could be that you're presenting the deceptive editing in a way which is dishonest, or that there was lots of really juicy stuff that got left out, or maybe when you say she said she wished for a world without all men, it sounds really bad here, but in context, it was like Oh God, I deal with so much political harassment from men. Sometimes I just wish, I wish I didn't have to deal with it. And then it would be a little more defensible because it would just be like a sigh of frustration more so than an actual hatred of men. I don't really know without being able to see it, but I do generally prefer unbiased editing in my videos.
Two things. Number one, like if you made a response to the Jubilee video, I think it would have been responsible to look up whether or not there was any editing going on. And the other thing is that if an MRA said that he hated all women, do you think that it would get the same response?
Did she say she hated all men, or did she say that she sometimes wished there were no men?
I'm sorry. Wish that there were no men. But what happened? Like, would that generate the same response as a man saying that he wished that women didn't exist or something along those lines?
I can't share in the outrage of your hypothetical, but I can imagine plenty of scenarios where men would say that and I wouldn't be upset by it. Like, for example, if there was like a super horny, like Coomer posting dude who couldn't get any work done because he was constantly thirsting after women and he knew it was a problem. And I was like chilling with him at his place and he like lays back on his bed and he's like, oh my God, I just wish there weren't any women. I wish there were no women. I wish I could just chill, you know? I wouldn't even consider that misogynistic necessarily. So the context in which this is said definitely makes a difference in both cases.
Okay. Well, so I take it you don't have I would imagine you wouldn't have a problem with political lesbianism then, or separatist feminism as a lot more.
No, that's dumb as fuck. Oh no, absolutely not.
What's dumb about it?
Segregationism doesn't fix social problems. It never has and never will.
What's your opinion of the fact that the political lesbians, aka separatists, actually successfully had entire communities that were overtly discriminating against men? Now, here's the thing: if separatists want to go and live in their female-only circle jerks out in the mountains, I don't really care. But I am a little bit surprised that they were able to. I don't know if they bought up development. Like, no, this is a real thing. I see the confusion on your face.
Just what are we talking about specifically here?
The term is called women's lands. Like
okay, because like political lesbianism is like the most irrelevant ideology on the planet right now. There's absolutely no political power oriented around that ideology. It's possible that at points there have been tiny little pockets of women trying to flip the scale and go their own way and what have you, but it is definitely not something that has any meaningful impact in the world as it is today.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, you do have the political lesbians. They created what are called Womyn's lands, WOMYN. And they actually, I don't know if they bought up development or something, but these communities are able to discriminate against men. But that's in the form of men are not allowed in those spaces. Now, it's not that I mind that, but I'm thinking, like, doesn't that set a precedent where you could have either a community where men don't allow women in, or one race not allowing another race in, as long as it's private land and not public land?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to agree with any of this. Though keep in mind, there are circumstances where I think creating women's only spaces is perfectly legitimate and justified. For example, there are like women's only gyms, there are women's only classes, women's only... There are some social functions where I think a person can make a decent argument that it's okay to separate with respect to that. Additionally, if you own property and you basically just want to have a bunch of women over as roommates, that is legally your right. I think it's a little weird, but you know, that is the case. Keep in mind, it's not legal to discriminate against a person's gender for housing. Being a man is also a protected class in the United States of America. So we're not talking about there being some legal loophole or bias that they're exploiting. They're basically just doing, to the extent that they can within our legal system, some weird little partisan separatism thing. And it's just probably isn't many people. I sincerely doubt there are more than a few thousand lesbian separatists around the world altogether. I would guess. I could look into it, but that'd be my guess. I can't imagine this is very common.
Well, I mean, I would imagine it would be hard to measure if they're living in secret societies, but I'm not advocating for that or against it, but I'm at least pointing out that it could set a precedent where if the Civil Rights Act of 1968 is sidestepped or curtailed, then that could like open the door for, you know, well, I guess neo-Nazis already do that. I guess if like there were MGTOWs that were like really dedicated to creating, because there was a YouTuber named Angry MGTOW who wanted to have an all-male utopia, and I know that there are he had a large following before he.
That sounds pretty gay.
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't sound. Is there a problem with that? I mean, I'm
no
a guy, but
I fuck dudes. It's just pretty gay. Keep in mind, you're talking about a juxtaposition to political lesbianism. The all-women's groups you were just referring to self-described as lesbians. So if we're doing the men equivalent, then yeah. I mean, what's the point of living with a bunch of guys if you're not attracted to any of them, right? Like in a community? I mean, do you want to leave town every time? Do you want to see a cute girl? You know?
I mean...
But is that bad? Wait, you seem taken aback. Do you have a problem with that?
No. I think I was just confused for a second.
Okay, all right. Well, there's nothing wrong with it being gay. I just, you know. Look. Anyway, look. These women's lands thing. These are explicitly. These are second wave feminist communities. And I'm looking at the criticisms underneath them. They don't allow trans women in. Many times they exclude het women, bisexual women, and working class and POC women. So it's basically exclusively a club for cisgender, lesbian, affluent white women. Or essentially, this is basically the consolidation of everything wrong with the second wave feminist movement. But I really don't think this is like a meaningful problem that's affecting the world. Like, there are probably way more important men's issues to focus on, right?
Well, I mean, the separatism thing is not like the hill that I want to die on, but it is something that was on my mind, and I'm like thinking about the precedent that potentially, like, if I'm not really sure how. I remember trying to look up how they were able to have an entire community that discriminates against a specific group of people. I
just don't understand what the point is in fixating on this. This just seems like you probably would have never heard about this unless some content creator or forum post that you perused mentioned it. Like, this doesn't affect anyone in the real world. If you're arguing that it's discriminatory, that's true, but there are compounds, cults, reserves and reservations all over the United States that are discriminatory in some way or another. There are all men communities all over the place. I mean, there are communities that are expressly patriarchal in their nature. And we know that there's plenty of redlining that goes on when it comes to the housing discrimination for people of color. So these are issues that go around all over the place. But this seems like the most trivial possible expression of that issue. Because tens of millions of people are affected by redlining. It has very real consequences on this country. But this is just, like, I don't know. This just doesn't seem like a real men's issue. Like, we could be talking about suicidality, mental health, toxic masculinity, stuff like that. And I think you could move a lot of people in a healthier direction that way.
It is interesting that it's called toxic masculinity, because I think I'm not 100% sure if every aspect of that word has to necessarily do with, I mean, I guess it could be masculinity, but
yeah, men are taught to value a certain set of things, and often those values comes back to hurt them and the people around them. To be emotionally unavailable, to be aggressive, to posture, to be excessively prideful, unintrospective, act before thinking, you know, got to do the macho, tough guy shit with other people. Yeah, that's like a masculinity thing. it's overwhelmingly associated with masculinity.
I mean, when it comes to what is described as toxic masculinity, I kind of pick and choose what aspects of it I think are bad, and some of it I don't think is necessarily bad.
I'm not talking about all masculinity. I'm just talking about aspects of masculinity that are harmful.
No, I said, like, what is described as toxic masculinity.
Oh, I mean, the toxic part is bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then we should get rid of that.
Oh, what would feminists, or what would you define, like, as toxic? Like, not.
Well, I just described a few characteristics to you.
Okay. Well, I think. All right, I was not prepared on that one. Did you want to? Would you be okay with changing the topic to accept force in self-defense, or do you want to keep going on this topic?
Quick on the self-defense thing, because I am interested in what comes next in this damn game.
Okay.
But yeah, hit me up. What do you have in your mind?
So I don't remember which video of yours this was. I was watching one of your videos, and you said that there should be like a limit to how much force you can use in self-defense.
Yeah, as I understand it, in the United States, you're only authorized to use lethal self-defense if there's an actual lethal threat to you. It's a type of escalation. So if a person, like, shoves you, you can't pull out a Glock and shoot them in the face.
I'm not really in favor of that. I remember there was a YouTuber named, this is all relevant to the point, I swear. There was a YouTuber named Lockdown23 in his video where he explained what got him 5 years in prison was he was defending his house from 3 people that were going to attack him. And the thing that got him in trouble was he stabbed one of the 3 guys with a very long knife 3 times in the back, because what happened was he met a girl in a bar and they parted ways. And so he's in his garage, and she drives up with 3 guys. The 3 guys get out of the car. They walk onto the guy's lawn. The guy gets a knife. He stabs, they come up to him. The guy in the middle throws a punch at him. He ducks and stabs the guy in the middle. And the 2 other guys, they pull him back into the car. They drive off. In court, the judge said, okay, well, you used too much force, so I'm going to give you 5 years in prison.
Well, yeah, he did. He basically just stabbed somebody for stepping onto his lawn.
I mean, if someone is making a move where it's apparent that they're going to attack someone on their own property, why shouldn't that person have be allowed to use unlimited amounts of force in self-defense?
Because the duty to retreat only applies when you're in your property, in an area that other people would trespass upon. I don't think it extends out to your lawn. I mean, the problem is that pragmatically speaking, if you extended that privilege out to the lawn, it would mean that anytime like kids come to your door, or like anytime people are on your lawn and you don't like them, you can just infer lethal intent and then kill them. And that would be legally problematic, not only because it would lead to a lot of people being killed, but also because when you kill a person by using lethal force, you deny the court the ability to hear their side of the story. So you generally want to minimize the extent to which people kill each other, even in cases of self-defense, because you want to hear the full side of the story. And I don't know if your recounting of that tale is fully accurate, or even if that guy was lying or not. People lie all the time about what got them into prison, so I don't really know.
I mean, I tried looking up the exact case, and I'm guessing he was trying to avoid doxing himself by not putting his information out. but even if like I can't necessarily corroborate what he said, I still think about the story that he told, and if there's a limit to how much force you can use in self-defense, if someone breaks into if person A breaks into person B's house, and
if you break into a person's house, you can use lethal force no matter what.
Unless if you live in a state where you have the duty to retreat, which requires people to abandon their property until the invader leaves.
The duty to retreat only applies if it's possible to retreat to a different place of safety. If you're already in your house, I feel as though that would already, you would already be at the end point there. Most U.S. jurisdictions have a stand your ground law or apply what is known as the castle doctrine, where a threatened person need not retreat within his or her own dwelling or place of work. I think to some places this also applies to your car. Which states have castle doctrine? Let me see.
A lot of blue states do. The only two that have the duty to retreat, as far as I'm aware of, are Vermont and Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is not really a state, but...
this could be an outdated chart. I'm seeing Virginia, Nevada, New Mexico, North Dakota, Michigan, and a few others don't have a castle law. But the state that I'm in does, so I'm good.
Are you in... I forget if you're in Washington or California.
I'm in Washington.
Oh, I thought you were in California.
No, I used to be.
Oh, okay. Well, still, I don't really agree with the duty to retreat. I like the castle doctrine. I actually kind of like the stand your ground law with the provision that there's ubiquitous surveillance. So that way we can prove who was the attacker and who was the defender. Like if
you want a surveillance state just so that you can legally parse out the consequences of encouraging people to shoot each other in self-defense? Wouldn't that be like causing a new problem, like a very big new problem? Just to solve like a very small problem?
What do you mean? We already have cameras that are everywhere and we have the NSA.
Not everywhere. I'm pretty sure the amount of space that's actually constantly surveilled is like 0.0001% of the available public space in the world. Or in America, I mean. I mean, we don't really survey everything. There's no way to reliably always have video camera footage at an altercation, you know?
Well, maybe they just do things differently in Washington.
What does that mean?
I mean, where I live, there's pretty much cameras everywhere. Like at every street corner, you've got cameras. You know, schools, they've got cameras. Even private buildings, there's cameras everywhere. Now, granted, like out in the streets, you're not going to have cameras there everywhere. And if you have surveillance in your equipment in your house, then you can record stuff there. But I don't really see what the problem with surveillance. I don't really see the problem with surveillance if it means being able to prove that whether someone like George Zimmerman or Trayvon Martin was the aggressor or defender. Because without...
But that murder happened in the suburbs. You would have to get cameras out in front of every residential property as well. I mean, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars of collective surveillance infrastructure.
I mean, the way I see it, if Congress is willing to dump like trillions of dollars into the stock market, I don't see why they couldn't do a public service like this.
I would not consider constant surveillance of my house and person to be a favor. But that could just be me. Yeah. Well, I think we just have a fundamental disagreement on this particular issue that I don't know if we can quantitatively resolve. Is there a final meme you'd like to shout out before I head back and get my ass kicked by this game?
All right. The only thing that I have left to say is no matter which one of us won or lost, Destiny got destroyed in this debate.
That's true. That's always true. You take care now, okay?
Thanks. Thank you very much. Bye.